idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are here for our Week 5 recap. We had some exciting movement in the league this week, a whole bunch of trades taking place, a whole bunch of shuffling of the proverbial deck. We had a league median score this week of 195, so accounting for the fact that a few teams were on bye, another nice week of scoring across the NFL. How'd your team do this week? Bonus. Lost. Yep. Normally we get into stuff, we cover the waiver wire at the beginning, but there wasn't a whole heck of a lot on the waiver wire. There really never is in our league, as you're all well aware. So we're going to skip right into the trades. And we decided that the order of the trades, we were going to go basically least important to most important. Most impactful, I guess I should say. Important is a relative term for each team. But least impactful to most impactful. And, we'll work our way to the more exciting stuff towards the end. So our first trade that we've got was between the two of us. I acquired Smartt for 1 FAAB. I think we can probably move on from this one pretty quickly.
You don't want an in-depth analysis of Smartt?
I don't know that there is any in-depth analysis to be had for Smartt.
Yeah, it's pretty much if Parham sits this week with his wrist injury, then Smartt will probably pick up some pass-catching snaps as the second tight end. That's about it. In this league, it's worth a roster spot at least.
Yeah. Smart's a young player. He's only in his second season. They haven't really asked him to do a whole lot, so he hasn't had a lot of opportunities. I don't know that he's ever going to amount to anything. I suspect not, but he's worth a stash, I suppose, as a last player on the bench.
Yeah, he's one of a long line of big receivers that are trying to convert to tight end.
Second and third most impactful trades can basically be paired together here, both involving you and Leonard Fournette. The first one, you sent out 3 FAAB and received Leonard Fournette from Mr. Good News. And then a short while later, you turned around and sent Leonard Fournette right back out the door and got $4 in FAAB from Georgia Mike. So obviously big bucks changing here. Can you tell us about these trades?
Pure profit.
It indeed is a profit. You've managed to acquire 2 FAAB this week. What are you going to spend it on?
So basically, this was all because of the chat. I didn't plan on acquiring Leonard Fournette. Mr. Good News needed to make some roster moves after a big trade with you. And he put out in the chat who wants Leonard Fournette for 3 FAAB. And of course, I raised my hand because I love old, shitty running backs that are not worth anything.
He's not even on a team.
Exactly, even better. So he actually proposed it to me, and he called my bluff. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I had to accept at that point.
Was it initially meant as a bluff, as a joke?
Yeah, this was 100% joke. I did not want Leonard Fournette on my team. So
Okay.
I went and accepted it, and I said, okay, now how can I get rid of Leonard Fournette? And Georgia Mike commented right after me that he'd give $4. So I said, all right, well, here you go. Here's Leonard Fournette for 4 FAAB. And he agreed that he would take him on. It makes more sense for him to roster him, right? He doesn't care if he's not on a team and not scoring any points.
Yep.
If he does find his way onto a roster, he's probably going to get snaps. He's probably going to get touches, and he'll probably be worth more than 4 FAAB.
Yeah.
So it's a good gamble for him. It makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good stash, and hope you can flip it for a 4th or 5th round pick later on and, get some extra capital.
Yeah, it was just a funny chain of trades.
Yeah. It's
mostly no reason. Just shuffling.
I was a little
on the Titanic.
I was a little surprised that it happened in that. I think I even asked in chat, like, did I miss something with Fournette? Like, is he working out for someone? Is there an injury I'm unaware of? Like, what is happening?
Nope. Nope.
All right. Just our own collective Leonard Fournette nightmare, I guess. Well, it was certainly an interesting diversion. We said it before. It seems that when one trade happens, there's always a flurry of trades, and we had 8 trades this week or something like that. Just a bevy of them.
Yeah, it was definitely a chain reaction, all caused by Leonard Fournette.
Was it though?
No, not really.
I think it was all caused by Stone Smartt.
This was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact order of things, although I do have it open on my phone. I guess the first
Stone
one
Smartt was the second trade.
Yeah, chronologically, the first one we're gonna cover is your Olave trade, but we're not quite there yet. That one's a little bit higher stakes than where we're at right now. We're at Jamaal Williams for a 4th and 5th round pick.
We're slowly working our way up to relevance.
Well, he's on a roster, so it's a little bit more important than Fournette.
We've still got a long way to go, though.
Yeah, no, it's
4th
not
and 5th round pick.
More important does not mean important.
For running backs on IR.
Yeah.
Because I definitely need running back depth in this league. I have no running backs. And Jamaal Williams does not really help me this week because he's currently on injured reserve. But I hope at some point in the future he will maybe possibly get some carries because I could sure use a running back that actually plays on an NFL field.
He's been on injured reserve for, I think, 2 weeks already. This might be his 3rd week on. So he'll be eligible to come back for you relatively soon. Hopefully he is healthy then. This is a reverse of what happened last year when you traded me Jamaal Williams. So I figure next year it's my turn again.
Well, let's hope he scores 20 touchdowns over the course of the year like he did for you last year.
Yeah, it was great.
I have doubts.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem likely. After that, we have a trade between you and Mr. Good News, where you received Ryan Tannehill and Mr. Good News received Robert Woods and Tyler Boyd. Now, Tyler Boyd was on your team a very short span of time, and we'll cover that momentarily, but you picked up an extra quarterback, and Mr. Good News gets some extra wide receiver depth here. What made you decide to pursue Ryan Tannehill?
So this was just an ugly vet for vet trade, need for need. I needed some more depth in my quarterback room, and he needed some more wide receiver depth. He acquired a big name receiver that we're going to get into shortly, but he also needed some depth to kind of fill out the rest of the room. I had a glut of old vet receivers that nobody really wants. He has an old quarterback that he didn't need anymore after he acquired another better quarterback. So we just kind of swapped them around.
So I understand always acquiring quarterbacks, but what makes you say that you need an extra quarterback? Typically, you see most contending teams try to carry 3, and obviously you have Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, and Tua Tagovailoa, all of whom, as far as I'm aware, are healthy.
Right, for now. Quarterbacks are expensive to acquire, and when you have an injured quarterback, you lose a lot of your leverage in trades when teams know you need a quarterback. So the best time to get an extra quarterback is when you don't really need it, because otherwise you're going to end up having to overpay.
Oh, perfect. And that gives you the position to try to go to someone else and make them overpay for Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure people are lining up to acquire Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, you just wait, my friend.
I'm going to laugh in chat if I trade him before this episode even airs. I'm sending out trade offers right now.
Yeah, I believe you. Don't send me one.
And now on to the real trades.
Yeah. So I hope everyone enjoyed the warm-up. Let's get into the real stuff now. Our 6th trade here that we're covering finally does not involve one of the two of us.
There are other teams in this league that trade without us?
Here's the thing. We're finally to the good trades now, though.
Oh, that makes sense.
All those other good trades were pretty terrible.
That's right. All the terrible trades are from us. No one likes to swap FAAB and late round picks like us.
You say it jokingly, but really it's a fair statement. No one does. So the next one we have is a trade between Big Biscuits and Benign Rug, where Big acquired Dalvin Cook and Jerry Jeudy, and Rugg acquired Rondale Moore, Zach Evans, a 2025 first, and a 2024 fourth round pick, both of which were Big's own picks. So Rugg gets an extra first round pick next, or 2 years from now in the draft, and Big gets another wide receiver and another running back for his title run here.
Big continues to load up. He was already all in, trading away his entire 24 draft class. Now he's starting to trade away the 25 draft class. He's really all in, and he should be strengthening strength. He's now in first place overall in the league. Team just continues to chug along.
Yeah, and I mean, no wonder if he keeps having all of his rookies perform this well and all of his young players do this, and he keeps adding veterans like Jeudy and Cook to it. Jeudy's still obviously a young receiver, but at this point he's considered a veteran to me.
I don't know about Dalvin Cook, but yeah, Jerry Jeudy was clearly the centerpiece of this trade.
No, absolutely, yeah. It's not going to hurt to have the extra, game or two that Cook will give him over the course of this season.
Yeah, I think really this was Jerry Jeudy for a future first.
Yeah.
Now, Benign Rugg is a Broncos fan. So my theory behind this is he was probably tired of watching Jerry Jeudy disappoint week after week, and he decided to cash out. It makes sense. Jeudy has yet to really deliver on the promise of his draft pedigree. We've seen flashes of it, but never really consistently over the course of an entire season. I think he's still worth a first round pick, especially 2 years out. It's really kind of a discounted first when you have to wait for it.
Yep.
So he's kind of fits the bill where he's kind of in between that value. He's probably not worth a 24 first, but he's worth more than a second round pick. To be able to get a future first and even Rondale Moore, who can contribute in a pinch, I think Rugg did well to get some kind of return here for Jerry Jeudy. And I think Big did well to buy a young receiver with upside for a should be discounted, 2 years out pick.
I mostly agree on both those counts. I do want to mention, you say that Rugg's a Broncos fan. Well, Big's a Cardinals fan, and we've seen him acquire every Cardinal that he possibly can get his hands on. This is one of the first times I've seen him trade away someone like Rondale Moore. And I know he likes Rondale Moore because he messaged me in the startup draft when I drafted Rondale Moore, and then he later traded with me for Rondale Moore. I know he likes Moore, so it's a bold move of him to trade away a guy that I know he likes.
It doesn't stop him from trading for him back. I mean, he traded me Zach Ertz, and that he lasted on my roster for a few weeks before I traded him back.
So how do you feel about H&H these days?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. It's just like most of my trades. Smart enough to trade for him and dumb enough to trade him away.
All right, after that brief sojourn, we're right back into the land of you and I making all the trades. The first trade that kicked off almost all of these other ones this week was you trading with Criddle. Now, everyone buckle up because there's a lot of pieces in this one. Criddle acquired Randall Cobb, Tariq Cohen, De'Ami Brown, Dallas Goedert, Nate Adkins. Why is Nate Adkins in this trade? Don't answer that. I'm going to keep going. A 2024 first round pick and 2 2024 second round picks. That's what Criddle got out of this. And on your side of things, you got Devontae Parker, Tyler Boyd, Irv Smith, Marvin Mims, and Chris Olave. Now, obviously, Olave had to have been your main target here, but you got a lot of names in here. So tell us about how this trade ended up taking this interesting shape.
So I think this story starts probably before the season. Once I acquired Dallas Goedert, I immediately started shopping him to Criddle because I know he's an Eagles fan and he needed another tight end, and he's got Jalen Hurts, so it makes sense to have a stack there at tight end. We couldn't work out a deal, but I knew he was interested. Kind of put that in my back pocket. Waited a few weeks into the season. Wasn't going well for him. we could see his build was very stars and scrubs. We had him on last week for an interview. He said he was not selling. He didn't want to sell. He still believed his team could make the playoffs. And he's got a handful of good players. It's just without the depth, it's difficult to compete in a best ball format like this with this many starters, this many roster spots, and frankly, this many sharp fantasy football managers. So we finally came to agreement that the best thing for his team was to move some of these older guys and get a bunch of picks. You're not going to get good picks for guys like Devontae Parker, Irv Smith, Tyler Boyd, right? If you want to get impactful pieces, you have to trade an impactful player, and that's where Chris Olave came in. So really, Olave was kind of the centerpiece to get back Goddard, a first-round pick, a couple of second-round picks. The rest of the guys that he got are depth that are probably going to be jettisoned. Really, what he was trying to do is take one of his big assets and split it into as many additional potentially useful assets as possible. And that's what he did. And then on my end, I was just trying to get as many old, crusty vets that nobody wants, that aren't really worth anything, but could potentially help fill out some depth for at least this year, that I can hopefully keep on my bench as a potentially contending team. Although the contending part is looking worse by the week.
I think you're burying the lead here. We know how much we know your love affair with Denzel Mims. You got Marvin Mims now. You were talking about him all off season.
All right, Marvin Mims may have been my favorite player in this draft, and I tried desperately to trade during the draft for
I remember
essentially the entire second round. I offered picks at every spot, and no one would trade with me, including Criddle, who ended up taking him. So yeah, I had to get him into this deal, even though it probably cost me more than he's really valued. I had to throw extra picks in there just to make sure I could add him to the deal and finally get him on my roster. And he rewarded me this week with 1 catch for 4 yards and a fumble.
That's one of those stat lines where you look at it and compare it to the other ones in the draft, or other ones that he's had, and you just kind of sigh and you move on because there's not much you can do.
So what do you think about this trade? I know why I did it, because I'm the one that pulled the trigger.
Obviously, getting a player like Olave is very difficult. You need a high draft pick or to hit on a guy at the right spot. And then once he's gotten established like Olave has over the last year and a half, they become incredibly valuable when they're that good at that young of an age.
To get a guy like that, you have to overpay.
Exactly. So you gave up a first in 2 seconds, and obviously Goddard as well. The other pieces are end of roster fodder type of guys.
You don't want to talk about Nate Atkins?
I'm not. Well, no, you saw how I stuttered on Atkins' name. Like when I was reading, I've looked at this trade. Every time I just glazed over when I got to that part. So I hadn't even noticed that he was in there until now.
I'm surprised you knew his name.
He's a tight end. We know all the tight ends.
Damn you, Mel, and your crazy deep start 2 tight end format.
And also, I wanted to get this out here now because I didn't want to interrupt you when you were saying it before. We had Criddle on 2 weeks ago. The two of you couldn't have figured this out then? We could have had a great episode with live on-air trading.
Well, you'll notice it's 2 weeks in a row. First, we had Flea on, and then you immediately traded with her right after the episode. Yep. And now we had Criddle on, and I traded with him immediately after the episode.
Yeah, but she and I traded a couple, a couple of draft picks and Cam Akers. You guys traded Chris Olave, Dallas Goedert, 2 second-round picks, a first-round pick. It's a little bit bigger of a trade, I would say.
Well, our next scheduled guest is JMC, so pressure's on.
The good thing for Criddle is, like you said, he gets his stack with Goddard and Hurts, which having the tight end stack is usually not great if the tight end is the third target, but in this league, the tight end stack can pay off better dividends than your typical wide receiver stack.
Definitely helped him this week.
5 weeks into the year, and he has more than half his points in 1 week. The only week he wasn't on your roster.
You're welcome. Every time.
having 2 extra second round picks and an extra first round pick is certainly a nice way to start off your draft.
Yeah, he plugged a big hole that he had at tight end outside of Kittle and gives him some more capital to potentially replace Olave with multiple pieces instead of just the one Olave.
Exactly. I put my own trade at number 1.
Shocking. Shocking.
Yeah. Well, listen, when you can acquire Taylor Heineke, it's headline news.
I mean, to be fair, Puka Nacua is in this deal, and he's probably the most valuable player that got traded in this entire week of flurry of trades.
I would certainly like it to be true. It's always tough to gauge that sort of thing. I would imagine that Olave probably garners more on the open market, but I'm not sure.
Not for long. Not the way Puka's been playing. Puka's definitely outscored Olave this year, and it's not really close.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to trade for Puka Nacua, you heard it here. He's the number 1 wide receiver in all of fantasy. Come at me with your offers. Let's give the breakdown of this trade here. So Mr. Good News added Kirk Cousins, Stefon Diggs, Durham Smythe, and Gus Edwards, and traded away, as we mentioned, Taylor Heineke, Nick Chubb, Puka Nacua, and his 2025 first and his 2025 second round picks. Obviously, this is quite clearly a contender adding veteran pieces, Kirk Cousins, Stefon Diggs, Gus Edwards, none of whom are spring chickens. Diggs still at the top of his game, but up there in age. Cousins up there in age, but has been a perennial top 10 quarterback since our league's inception. Gus Edwards now in a little bit of a bigger role after the Dobbins injury, making me cry once again. What do you think about it?
Honestly, the most surprising part for me was that you traded away Durham Smythe. I know for sure it hurt to give up Durham Smythe. He's been your guy for way longer than necessary. You held him all year last year when all he was doing was blocking. He finally starts catching passes, and now you trade him away? In this league? In this format?
So I had him in our first year, and I remember in the offseason you being like, why the heck is this guy on your roster? He's a terrible player, whatever. And then I pointed out to you that he was the number 33 scoring tight end, which means he was a top 3 tight end by statistics. And you were flabbergasted at that at the time. And he's basically been up and down in terms of production, but I don't know. I got a soft spot for the guy. I don't know what to tell you.
No, but seriously, this was definitely a contender, non-contender trade.
Yep. You shouldn't call Mr. Good News a non-contender. That's not polite.
Well, his team is ahead of me in the standings, so I would not say that about him because I still consider myself.
But so is mine right now.
I don't want to talk about it. So Stefon Diggs, clearly the centerpiece of this deal. He is a machine. He catches 10 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown basically every single week. He's the number 1 target in one of the top passing offenses in the league. If anybody's going to be able to match Puka Nacua's insane production, it seems like Stefon Diggs is probably a pretty good bet. I understand the swap of cashing out on what could be the ceiling for Puka, right? He made the swap right before Cup came back. Puka ended up having a decent week, even with Cup back. Seems like there's going to be plenty of targets to go around for the two of them. But it makes sense as a contender to kind of cash out at that value and turn him into someone like Diggs. He also managed to get off of Nick Chubb, who's obviously not going to play this year. Heineke's not giving him any points right now. It's always possible the way Desmond Ridder kind of oscillates between poor performances and mediocre ones, that Heineke may play at some point. But really, as a contender, he needs points on his roster. Kirk Cousins is a big upgrade for him at quarterback. He's been struggling trying to get consistent production behind Justin Herbert.
You mentioned that 25 picks come at a discount. Part of that discount is you don't know what the league landscape is going to look like in a couple of years. And a lot of Good News' team value is tied up in that running back position that we've talked about. Part of that was with Chubb, obviously, who got hurt. Part of that is Jacobs, Madison, other guys like that. But we've mentioned that those positions don't tend to have quite the same shelf life as other positions. So that 25 pick could be a little bit more likely to be a earlier pick as opposed to a later pick. I'm not saying that's likely, but it is a higher possibility of it.
He's also adding more older vets to the team with Cousins and Diggs on top of that. So he's really all in for right now. There's a chance this could come back to bite him if it ends up being a really high pick. But if he wins this year, then it really doesn't matter.
No, it won't matter at all.
Worth it.
Yeah.
And these are the type of moves you got to make if you want to really win, because everyone else is continuing to bolster their rosters. The contenders and the pretenders are beginning to separate. So if you want to be a contender, you got to make moves. You got to add to your lineup. And I think the discount of it being a future pick is more, it's more in a way that you can't cash in that value.
Yeah, I said the uncertainty. I didn't really mean it that way. I meant more of the delay. It's an unrealized asset for 2 years. Exactly.
You can't do anything. It's not going to, you can't draft anybody with it next year. You got to wait another year. At some point you can cash it in, and at least we're in a league that seems fairly stable. I don't think that the league is going to disappear in the next year or two. So at some point you will realize that value.
Yeah. And like you've said in terms of other trades before, players, you have to find someone who likes the player and is a fit. Draft picks are a fit for everyone. So if, I find a player that I like that I want to trade for, or find another draft pick that I want to try to move up for, everyone's always willing to entertain future capital. They might value it slightly differently, but nobody's going to be like, no, I didn't like future capital's tape.
Right. Draft picks are always liquid.
Yep. One thing I did want to mention, good news now has Diggs and Gabe Davis on his team, which I found interesting. That's the top two targets there. Go trade for, let's get a Herbert for Josh Allen trade going. Get that super stack.
Certainly worked this week. Didn't help him get the win, but Diggs and Gabe Davis both went over 100 yards and a touchdown. And that can definitely happen in the Buffalo offense. Targets are very concentrated between those two guys. Yeah. It's not really a lot of ancillary options, especially with Kincaid kind of being eased in slowly.
All right. I mentioned at the top, I'm going to refresh everyone's memory. Our league median score this week was a 195.81. So anyone over that gets that bonus win. Anyone under? Bonus. Loss. Our number one score this week was the commissioner, Mel Crisp, with a 292.64, which is good enough for sixth all-time highest weekly score of a team in our league. Congratulations, Mel, and congratulations on the win. He beat out Benign Rug with a 148.45. Mel's team had a massive week across the board, but none more impressive than Jamar Chase, who went off for 15 receptions, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 11 first downs, a total of 61.45 points. That is the number one individual player score in our league's history. It is a significant margin over the previous number one. Just an absolute monster performance out of Jamar Chase in the desert.
Yeah, finally got us a win in the other league. Bengal stack finally paying off.
To be fair, we were playing against a team that's tanking. We were getting that win regardless.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Chase outscored our entire opponent's roster. Yeah. He was starting Taysom Hill at quarterback, so that's kind of the state of that league.
Wasn't kidding when I said he was tanking. Just what a incredible week for Chase. And, he's had a decent year, but nothing like this. The rest of Mel's team, huge week for Justin Fields on that Thursday night game. Zach Moss with what may be his swan song with Taylor back, 35.25 points. Cooper Kupp, a great return, 24.8 points right out of the gate. Kyle Pitts scored points. Mel put it in chat. He thought something might be wrong, said there was a glitch. Just a great week from his team. Josh Allen with a 30-point in his super flex. An incredible week across the board. That's why he gets that number 6 all-time score. But nice job by his team tonight. This week, I should say.
Yeah, his team finally showed up this year, and in a big way. This is the biggest score we've seen so far this year. One of the biggest of all time in our league history. Pretty much everybody popped for him, his entire lineup up and down. And when that happens, this is the result. He showed his ceiling this week for sure.
Yeah, on the other side of things, Benign Rug doing his best impression of you. 2 zeros in his running back spots. Jordan Addison with a nice game. Curtis Samuel with a nice game. We've been over it before. Rug not really doing a whole heck of a lot to try to win. He's moved on towards next year, so we're going to move on towards our next matchup as well. Second highest score of the week was JMC with a 243.49, beating out Georgia Mike with a 59.98. I'd like to congratulate JMC for the largest margin of victory on the week.
And I'd like to continue to congratulate Georgia Mike for continuing to not score any points on the week and continue his march towards the 101.
A solid week from JMC. Brock Purdy continues to be good. Is Brock Purdy good? I don't understand.
Yes.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. I mean, every week he proves doubters wrong every week.
Every week.
There's still people out there who are doubting him. This guy operates the offense to perfection. This is exactly what Shanahan wanted.
Every week it's, 220, 250, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. That if he can keep doing it, they're gonna. I don't know when they're gonna lose. They'll be in the Super Bowl.
He doesn't wow you with any off-platform 50-yard throws across his body. He just kind of operates in this precision offense. It's just a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't make any bad decisions. He has yet to throw an interception this year. He just puts the ball where it needs to go.
He's had a couple dropped interceptions, though.
Right. But he puts the ball, for the most part, in his playmakers' hands and gives them a chance to make plays. That's what this offense is designed. It's built around yak guys.
Yeah.
All of their
with guys like that, that's what you need to do.
Yeah. Just get him the ball, let him do the dirty work. And he's operating it to perfection. I don't know what more you can ask from him.
Nah.
He's not going to be Anthony Richardson.
Talk about off-platform throws across the body 50 yards. Jeez, you see that one.
That dude is an alien.
Yeah.
Now, if we can just get him to stay on the field.
All right, so outside of Purdy, obviously, DJ Moore with the massive game. We mentioned Fields for Mel had a massive game. It was all to DJ Moore. 230 yards, 3 touchdowns, 52.5 points. In any other week, this is the number 1 scoring wide receiver. Just so happened to come in the same week that Jamar Chase went off.
Yeah, man, when JMC's guys boom, they boom.
Tyreek Hill for JMC, a 36-point game. Travis Kelce, 31-point game. Jacoby Myers, 25-point game. Just the studs showing up and showing up big. The only real down spots for him was, unfortunately, his tight end 1, Jonnu Smith, did not have his typical game. It was only 67 yards this week, so, a little bit down there.
How dare you? Jonnu Smith belongs with the studs. This dude is a stud every week.
No, that's true. He did have 16.7 points. I shouldn't get that down on
That's
him.
a good tight end score.
It is a good tight end score. I didn't even make my customary joke. For the 5th week in a row, Jonnu Smith has made JMC's lineup, and for the 4th week in a row, Jonnu Smith has scored points.
It's not a joke anymore. He's good.
Yeah. So
we could all use more Jonnu Smith in our lives.
That's true. The only real disappointment for JMC came in the form of his superflex spot. Daniel Jones with a tough game and then got injured. Looks like he's going to be out a few weeks. Already thin at quarterback after having lost Rodgers. JMC might be in another tough spot here. If he's interested in acquiring someone like Tyrod Taylor, though, to fill that spot, he could look right across the way to Georgia Mike, who was his weekly opponent and actually had Tyrod Taylor as his starting quarterback because, well, Zach Wilson was bad this week because Zach Wilson is bad at football. So Tyrod Taylor made Georgia Mike's lineup. It'll be interesting to see if anyone comes calling for his services and to see if Georgia Mike can capitalize on his opportunity to add some extra capital.
And get points off of his roster.
Yeah, the points on his roster that we can mention, Drake London had a decent game. Michael Pittman continues to have solid performances. Not a whole heck of a lot else. A couple guys on bye. A lot of guys like Leonard Fournette who aren't even on teams. He's got Ronald Jones there too. I don't know why those guys are on the roster, but hey, I'm not.
Because they aren't scoring points for him. But if they do start scoring points, then he'll be able to flip them for something.
Okay, but
it makes sense with this build.
I told you this 2 years ago that I didn't know why Ronald Jones was on your roster. Here we are 2 years later, and he's still on a roster.
He was still on my roster up until recently.
It would have cost you nothing to not say that. Yeah, we're going to move on from there. The third highest scoring team this week was Flinch with a 223.14, beating out me. I had a 147.11. A nice week for Flinch. Led the way. Breece Hall, his second big game of the year with one of those long breakaway touchdowns. George Pickens.
He's back. Or maybe he just played the Broncos. We'll find out next week.
Hey, ¿por qué no los dos?
For our bilingual friends.
I'm not bilingual. 30-point games out of Logan Thomas, 30-point game out of Pickens, and 30-point game out of Breece Hall. Just nice, solid performances there. Deshaun Watson on bye nets him Derrick Henry in his superflex spot with a 9.95, which was more than enough to outscore my superflex of Dak Prescott with a 4.07. So, I mean, it'll get the job done for sure.
Yeah, tough week for Dak and tough week for the Cowboys. Tough week for pretty much anyone that plays the 49ers these days.
Yeah, they've looked incredible. We talked about Purdy seeming to get it done just about every week, but that entire offense and that entire defense all seem to show up every week. Over on my side of the ball, decent week from a few guys. Puka Nacua just came over in the trade. Solid effort, even with Cup back. DeAndre Hopkins with his best game of the year so far, 8 for 140. 7 first downs, a nice 27.5 game. Not a whole heck of a lot outside of that. A.J. Dillon with a nice bounce back. Here's where I'm going to abuse my platform. If anyone is interested in trading for Hopkins or Dillon, you come see me.
Better get those points off your roster.
Yep. All points must go. Except for Mahomes.
All points must go.
Our fourth highest scoring team of the week was Flea Flickers with a 211.9, beating out Vandelay Industries, my co-host here, at a 189.01. Flea gets a 2-win week. You were not the highest scoring team in the league this week, so you go 0-2 and get the bonus loss. Bonus. Loss.
Keeping the streak alive.
On Flea's side of things, ETN with a 39.15 was our highest scoring running back of the week. You can run on the Bills, apparently. So some rough news for Flea's team with Richardson getting hurt and a possible IR stint coming. AC joint sprain is never good for a quarterback on the throwing shoulder. Bears monitoring, but she's got Stafford, she's got Carr, and we talked about it before. She has Minshew. If Richardson does end up missing time, she will have another viable starting quarterback at least.
Yep. Gardner Minshew looked at least capable of holding down the fort in the meantime. And the Colts and Flea are both getting Jonathan Taylor back. Got Taylor back this week. Wasn't a big contributor. Zach Moss was running crazy, so they really didn't need to ramp up his workload yet. But I expect that to switch over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you would expect that slowly tips in the other direction there, or maybe not so slowly, but I, I hate to say this, and I hate to say this to you more than anyone. Moss has looked competent this year. I don't know where this came from. This has not been evident over the course of his NFL career up until now. But
have you ever seen the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
I can only assume it's something like that. I assumed it was a Quantum Leap situation where he was just being inhabited by someone else.
Someone who is actually talented.
Yeah.
This is the Zach Moss I've been waiting for all of these years. Now that everyone finally gave up on him, here it is.
Who knows what'll happen now? I assume that he'll retain the backup role and probably end up with a few carries here and there. But I mean, we all know that there's not really a comparison between him and Taylor.
No, I expect the floor to drop out at any moment now. But, for now, enjoy the ride, especially in best ball. You don't have to worry about starting him or not. You just stick him on your bench, and when he goes crazy like this, he gets in your lineup and you score one of the highest scores of all time. Damn it, Mel.
Flea's team with a solid week from everyone. No, outside of ETN, no real jump out, standout performances. I guess it's worth noting that Waller has not played well this year, and having 24.6 points is a nice thing for her to have in the lineup there. I was going to say for everyone to see, but I'm a Giants fan and I didn't enjoy seeing it.
It was helpful in fantasy.
Yeah. So over on your side of things, Goff was really your only good player. Literally, your only player over 20 points was Jared Goff.
Yeah, I'm aware. It was not a good week.
Tough week across the board. The interesting thing, though, is your lowest score was still an 11.7. So you had your entire team essentially between 11 and 19 points. That's somewhat difficult to do.
Everybody was meh.
You really only needed one big pop performance out of anyone, and you'd have been over the median. You might not have gotten the win, but if you just got one more, 25-point game in there, you're over that median.
Yeah, I just didn't have any boom this week. Everybody was just kind of mediocre, which if we started maybe 20 people, there's a chance I could have won because I probably had 20 people in double digits.
Yeah, you had a lot of bench points.
Didn't help the ceiling this week.
Well, maybe next week. All right, we're going to go to our fifth highest score, which was Criddle. Gets the win over Mr. Good News. Criddle with a 209.04. Mr. Good News with a 185.52. The big one for Criddle this week was the Hurts and Goddard stack. Hurts with a 29.57. Goddard being the number one scoring tight end on the week with a 33.7. His other tight end spot, George Kittle, with a 29.95 on the strength of his first ever 3-touchdown day. I sent you that bet. I won $25 on that one.
On the strength of not being tackled a single time. Good job, Cowboys defense.
Yeah.
Maybe cover George Kittle in the end zone.
He's a really difficult guy to tackle, to be fair.
Yeah, that's fair. He's good.
Also showing up big for Criddle, Sam Howell with an almost 25-point day. And David Montgomery continues his touchdown scoring with 22.9. So nice solid days there. The rest of his team, solid performances, no real bust performances, but nothing spectacular on any fronts.
Yeah, like we said in the trades section, he's got stars. He just kind of needs more depth. He needs more players. He's got a bunch of guys in his lineup that weren't even over 10 points.
Yeah, Dotson.
When half your lineup doesn't crack 10 points, it's hard to get a lot of wins. He did this week because his studs really went off. His booms really boomed. But when half your lineup is scoring under 10 points, you're not going to be over the median and you're not going to get many wins most weeks.
Yeah. His 4 flex spots were filled. The score is 9.4, 8.5, 7.25, 5.0. It's not good, but it's not enough to just completely drag you down when you get those big boom weeks, like you said. On the other side of things, Mr. Good News didn't quite have the same level of boom. Stefon Diggs, his newest acquisition with a 28.1. Dalton Schultz at tight end, trying to keep pace with Kittle and Goddard, came closer to 26. Outside of that, I should have mentioned Gabe Davis. Both Gabe Davis and Diggs had big weeks. Davis with a 25 even. But outside of that, not a whole heck of a lot doing. Cousins and Jacobs both at 20 points even. No one else above 12 points outside of that. Madison at 12.6. So that's a massive gap where you go from a bunch of guys over 20 points to have no one in any of the teens. And, drop to Madison and then a few other guys filling out the back end.
Yeah, I think part of the roster construction here was behind the impetus for a few of the trades that he made, acquiring more depth, acquiring more talent. He's got some good pieces, but he really needed some extra help. And I think he definitely got it this week from Cousins and Diggs, and it's potentially some more wide receiver depth going forward from the guys he got from me. Hopefully it'll help him round out this lineup a little better. Moving on.
Indeed. Our sixth highest scoring team of the week was the Jerk Store, with Big getting a 202.61, beating out Judd, his alt account, with a 162.31.
Oh, big surprise that Judd finally has a down week on the week he plays Big. Interesting.
Yep, gave up that first place spot with nary a whimper. I don't know who it was in chat. Someone pointed out in chat earlier that every team that won this week got the bonus win. Every team that lost got the bonus loss. A lot of times we'll see a team that has a loss but still manages to get over that median. This week, obviously, that was not the case. It's always interesting when things like that line up perfectly. So everyone either went 2-0 or 0-2 this week.
Yeah, and even on a relatively disappointing week from Big, he was still did enough to get the win and get over the median. Still got enough scoring from his very deep and very talented roster.
You keep talking. I'm doing anything I can to avoid mentioning that Desmond Ridder had 27 points this week.
About time.
No, I liked Ridder coming out. So Ridder had a 27.16 against Houston there for Big. It was his only quarterback in the lineup. Obviously, Baker Mayfield on bye and Dobbs with a disappointing week against Cincinnati's defense made it so that Tank Dell ended up in the super flex spot for Big.
Yeah, but thankfully for him, Judd's lineup was even more disappointing this week. He really struggled. He had a lot of guys have down weeks, and he got basically nothing from his bench. So he had been in first place in points, first place in record all season up until this point. So it was the first 0-2 week for him.
Yeah, so each of these two teams ended up with big games from a couple wide receivers, or at least just one wide receiver, I should say. Big had a 26 from Calvin Ridley. Judd got a 33.45 out of Adam Thielen. Outside of those guys, not a ton going on at running back and wide receiver. H&H with another solid game. He's out. They're talking about him missing a couple weeks now. That's an unfortunate turn of events for Big and for Miami. Big's rookie tight ends, Laporta and Musgrave, both with nice games. 2 touchdowns for Laporta, 6 catches for Musgrave. For Big's lineup, worth noting that Ridley, Jeudy, Michael Thomas, all his recent acquisitions in there and scoring points for him. So those trades paying immediate dividends. Not a whole heck of a lot of analysis in this one, I would say. They're just kind of a down week for both of these teams, which is a little strange to say for the team getting the win and the over the median score.
Yeah, down being a very relative term relative to how his team has played the first few weeks. Still a good week.
All right, so that wraps up the weekly matchups. Again, congrats to those who got that bonus win, and better luck next time to everyone who ended up with that bonus loss. We're going to move over to our fantasy football playoff calculator here at Dynasty Daddy and check the percentage odds to make the playoffs and see how things have moved since last week. At the top currently, with an 8-2 record, a 95% chance to make the playoffs belongs to JMC. pretty sure JMC's been at the top of this for a couple weeks now, but he holds steady. He's not in first place in the league. That belongs to Big. Big's second place in the league, but the second highest percentage chance to make the playoffs at 87% chance.
Yeah, it seems like his playoff odds have finally caught up to his actual record.
Yeah, it took a while. Third and fourth in current record and third and fourth in percentage chance to make the playoffs is Flinch at 86% and Judd at 82%. And this is where we find our first tier break. Those four, all over the 80% mark, 82 to 95, grouped in pretty close. It's not surprising. They've all had great starts to season. All the teams are playing well. All right, so we have those top 4 in one tier. The next tier is essentially the next four. Flea Flickers at 68%, Mr. Good News at 67%, my co-host at 54%, and the Commissioner Melcrisp at 53%. So we have those top teams grouped in a 13% window. This is a 15% window, but it's still all fairly similar numbers.
This is the middle class of our league right now. These 4 teams are all within a game or so in the standings. They're all lumped around the same amount of points, and they all have very similar playoff odds. Seems like these 4 teams are going to kind of be fighting it out for the last 2 playoff spots as of right now.
Yeah, like I said, there's 4 teams, but there's only 2 spots, and we've seen some serious buying being done by a few of these teams. Obviously, Mr. Good News with the big splash trade this week, and Flea has been active all season long, if not quite in the same one big move. But it will certainly be fascinating to watch who decides to sell or who decides to back off first, if anyone does, or if all 4 of you go right up to the very end.
Flea and Mr. Good News are already pretty much pot committed on this season, trading away most, if not all, of their 24 draft picks and a few of their 25 picks. So I wouldn't expect those 2 teams to back off. Mel and myself still holding tight onto our first round picks this year, at least.
All right, so the final 4 remaining teams are grouped into that non-contending tier. At the top of it is Criddle with still a 5% chance to make the playoffs. So not very good chance there, but not quite the same less than 1% chance or 2% chance that my team is being given. So I'm
not quite dead yet.
Not quite dead yet. Any minute now.
I'm getting better.
No, it's not. So Criddle at 5%, my team at 2%, Georgia Mike and Rug both less than 1% chance. It does actually show Georgia Mike over Rug now, which is a flip from what we've seen in the past. Neither one of them are going to be likely to win any games, though, unless they play each other.
Yeah, there's a clear divide. These 4 teams have all been selling, if not recently, then throughout the offseason. So it seems like this is kind of the 4 teams fighting for the top spots in the draft at this point.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom. So we don't have an interview for everyone to enjoy this week. Hopefully we'll be able to get back to that next week. We've got a couple scheduled, and we'll share those as soon as we can. Nice job on the trades this week. I really enjoyed discussing all those right off the top. It's always fun when the league has a flurry of activity like this. I don't know if we're in for any more because most of these contending teams seem to have expended all that capital.
Most of them unloaded the clip, both 24 and 25 now. There's only so many more big moves that can be made at this point.
Listen, that 26 capital is there and available. If anyone wants to dip into it, we will discuss it.
Just burning a hole in your pocket.
I think that about wraps us up for this week. Hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we will catch you next time.
Arrivederci.
Did you include that at the end last week? I don't even remember.
When I did it, the one episode I did it in, I left it in there. I don't remember which episode it was. It's in there somewhere.